Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Mitch Simpkins, and this is Wins for Widows, where you get practical guidance from the mouth of professionals who are united in helping you get your feet on the ground after experiencing the loss of a loved one. Together, we'll uncover the rooted question that you might be asking yourself: what now, and what should I do next? So today, I am joined by Kathleen Rehl, and I am super excited, Kathleen, to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you've got a lot going on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So let me give you a little intro of Kathleen. She doesn't need much an intro. If you just search her online, you're going to find a lot of great information about what she's done. But let me give you an idea of who she is. So she's an author, she's a PhD, and a CFP, and a CFT. She's an educator and a storyteller, dedicated really to empowering widows financially and emotionally. So following the death of her husband, she transformed her personal journey into a mission to help other women navigate loss with confidence, clarity, and resilience. She's the author of this book, Moving Forward on Your Own, a financial guidebook for widows, which has become an award-winning resource used by tens of thousands of widows and of their advisors. Highly recommend it, by the way. Her work has been featured in publications including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Kiplinger's, and CNBC. She serves as an adjunct faculty at the American College of Financial Services, where she teaches and mentors professionals in philanthropy and legacy planning. And just recently, she's the recipient of the 2025 Excellence in Research Award for adjunct faculty from the American College of Financial Services for her studies on widows and money. Kathleen, what did I miss? Did I miss any other things? I could go on all day about you, but what did I miss? Anything else we should know about you?
Well, I like making carrot cake. I picked carrots from my garden last night and made a wonderful carrot cake for my dear husband after I returned from a trip.
There we
I
go.
love gardening.
There we go. And that's like a vegetable. So it's cake and dessert. It's vegetable and dessert at the same time.
Right. Healthy.
You're covering. So, and I want to get in a little too about like where you're heading with your life and your career. You're refiring yourself, I think is the term that you're using. You're not retired, you're refired, and you're as busy as anybody I know. So yes, it's so fun to have you on our podcast today. So Kathleen, tell us a little about like why this space? Why have you spent how many years really studying, researching, and doing a lot of work around this? How long has it been?
Well, really, it all goes back, way back. I'm a teacher at heart. And I started out as a public school teacher. Then I moved into, after I got the PhD, college professor. And when I got tenure, I said, okay, world, ready for a new challenge. And I entered the nonprofit sector for a dozen years. And then I earned my certified financial planner certificate credentials and opened up my own shop, Real Financial Advisors. And I did that for almost 20 years. And then my husband died. So when I said that just a few minutes ago, I made carrot cake for my husband, that was, I got married quite a few years after.
This is a different husband.
Yes. But Tom died. And then in about 3 years after that loss, I published the book, Moving Forward on Your Own, a financial guidebook for widows.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so that was born out of that loss. And I had worked with widows before his death.
Sure.
But when I became a widow myself, it was like, oh my gosh, this is really it's happening to me. And when I felt not very confident about some of my own money matter stuff, I was thinking, my gosh, if I'm a financial planner and I'm freaking about some of this money stuff, what about all those other widows who don't have my background and my knowledge? So I wrote that book. And then I continued in my practice for a little bit, but I decided that I could reach more widows and their advisors ultimately by the speaking, the teaching, the research, compared to working with 80 clients in my financial firm. Now, granted, my clients in my firm, I could go very deep, whereas my speaking, teaching, it was narrow kind of a thing, but I could ultimately reach more. And I did that for about 6 years. Then the pandemic came and I stopped. Everybody stopped going to conferences because we weren't doing them. But I was still invited to do some online webinars, and I started doing much more writing of short articles. And that was really I guess you'd say that was my retirement, where no, I don't consider myself retired. I'll never retire. That's such an antiquated concept anyway, retirement. And
I
I just
remember.
sent in an article. It's going to be published this month in Rethinking 65. Let's see, what's the title? How to Truly Connect with Widowed Clients, a call to advisors. And conversely, this afternoon, I'm working on an article about girlfriend getaways. That's what I did last week when 4 of us who have been friends for decades went to Albuquerque
There
for
you go.
several days.
There you go. I see a trend here, Kathleen. Write about and be passionate about the place that you're in your own life and what's going on, and it gives you purpose and meaning. That's a great concept. No, I
Exactly,
love it.
because there's another thread that I'm writing about now. It's aging and longevity planning, which is
Yes.
an area that some people find uncomfortable talking about.
Yes. How familiar with the ACLA? ACLA, Aging Care Life Association. You familiar with them? Have you done much with them?
Haven't done much. I know of them, and there are a number of groups and societies that are popping up. A lot more than just
Okay. Yeah. Yes. This is a great group. I've been interviewing a few of them on the podcast as well,
uh-huh. Yeah.
around the aging space as well, which obviously when we talk about widows and we talk about aging, unfortunately it ends up kind of being together because we as men die typically before our spouses, and so a lot of overlap and a lot of amazing learning, and they're doing some really cool things as well. So let's jump into some questions here. Kathleen, I want our listeners to learn from you because you have such a depth of knowledge. So the first question is around rebuilding confidence. I know as we've talked before, you've mentioned like 2 words, confidence and resilience. I asked you that last time we talked. I said, what are the 2 things that you think that widows need the most? And it's confidence and resilience. So around them rebuilding that confidence in their ability to handle financial decisions after loss, especially when there's so much overwhelm and it's just fog, brain fog, or technical jargon. How do they start? How does a widow start building or rebuilding that confidence right after their loss?
Most widows go through it's approximately 3 stages of widowhood. Initially, there's that heavy grief, and after that, there's a period of what I call growth. And I like alliteration, words that sound the same. So that third stage is what I call grace, or
Yes.
it can also be referred to as transformation. So in that early grief, that heavy, heavy grief, when you use the phrase
Fog.
widow's fog, I'm thinking jello brain. That's another term that
That's another
widows.
term. That's you.
It's just, it was like when I was in my early grief, it was like, oh my gosh, Tom's Social Security check's not going to be coming in anymore. His pension, I'm going to continue to get that, but it's going to be a smaller check than what it was before.
Yeah.
And I can't handle all the maintenance work of this house. How am I going to get all this kind of stuff done? So all this confusion. And when a new widow would come to me in that early phase, one of the first things I would do to help raise her confidence
Mm,
would be to say, yes, there's a lot of things going on and we're going to take care of all these things. But and I had a piece of paper and
mm,
I had a circle with like, this is you in the middle of it. And there were pictures of clouds all around it. Say, what are the things that you're concerned about right now? And so
mm,
she'd just start spitting them out. So she'd say, okay, what should I do with his car? What are the passwords for his accounts? I'm not really sure. How do I get into those?
mm, mm.
Am I going to be able to stay in this house, or am I going to have to leave because I can't make the mortgage payment? So everything that she was concerned about, we'd fill these clouds up, and there might be a dozen, 15 things. And then to let her know, yes, we are going to take care of all of these things and more.
Mm, mm.
But you know what? We don't. And so then she has a sense of, oh, we're going to get to it.
I'm going to be all right. I'm going to make it.
But we don't need to do all these things instantly. Like,
Mm,
yes, the plans for the funeral, that has to be handled pretty soon.
right.
But retitling of assets and reinvesting assets, that doesn't have to be done right away. So then I'd have a piece of paper and I would just fold it in thirds. And across the top, I'd put now, middle, soon, and later.
Mm,
And we take some of these clouds that she's just clarified and we put them in the columns. So she knows, all right, we're going to do these things. So then when she would leave my office, she'd have this now, soon, later. And with the now, those are like the urgent things that really need to
right.
get done. And so
Within
she
the
would
next what? 90 days, Kathleen? Just
no, that this would and we would talk about it might be within the next week. And some of those things are going to be financial things, and some of those things are going to be self-care things.
okay.
So she could, and because we
Okay.
would talk about how are you sleeping, how are you eating. I know I dropped just 10 pounds because I wasn't eating, and you'll find a lot of
Yeah.
widows that their eating behaviors change to go for a walk. I encourage many of my widowed clients to consider meditation or a yoga class. Or the very first yoga class I ever took was the same day that I picked my husband's ashes up from the mortuary. And I've been a yoga follower ever since. So there would be some self-care kinds of things and some financial kinds of things.
That's great. No, I love that. I love the focus on the emotional, the mental, and encouraging grief counselors going to counseling of the widows that I work with, those that seem to be most resilient, those who seem to be even under the very worst of losses, those who seem to be the most building confidence the quickest
Yes.
are also seeing a counselor on the side,
Yeah.
and they
It's
talk about it. They say, I went to my counselor and she taught me this. And here's something, and I see the difference as I meet with them on these little interims. I can see the confidence. I can see, I mean, the grief is still there, but I can see
yes.
a new sense of reality and of acceptance and of moving on.
Yeah.
And as hard as it is, and
And of
so
sharing their stories. And a big mistake that I made initially on, you're talking about counselors. I'm this strong woman. I'm capable. Do I need to have a counselor? No, I'm going to handle it myself. Well, I
yeah,
did that for the first 6 months, and I almost made a very bad mistake. But I had started going to see a counselor, and she helped me work through some things, a gathering of widows.
yep,
And
yep.
that it was just, it's so wonderful when you share your stories with others who have gone through it. You're in a room with other widows. You're not isolated. And what you're pouring out, your tears and your heart, the woman right next to you is talking about her situation. And the person across the room is talking about hers. And you are not alone.
And that's what she said. I said, what did you love the most about your experience? She said the training and education was good, but she said just being there and connecting with people and women and men in this case in my similar situation was just amazing. And she came back fulfilled
So,
and energized and like, okay, I'm not alone and I can do this because they are too.
and that really builds the resilience. And that was something that came out very strong in the research that our team did, that those who were the most resilient were the ones that were making the most progress financially and emotionally.
Kathleen, I've thought a lot about the word resilient after we first talked as it relates to widows. Tell me what it looks like to see resilience. If I were to look at it and say, "Oh, you are resilient," what does that look like?
The term that first comes to my head is like bounce back.
Okay.
You can reconnect. You're not in this. Sometimes widows are referred to as being stuck in their widowhood. And oftentimes these are older widows. They're women who were joined at the hip with their spouse. They just did absolutely everything together.
Mm, mm,
When that spouse dies, if she doesn't have resilience, she's going to sink and
interesting. Okay. Okay.
not not bounce back, not be able to go forward. Because
Interesting.
widowhood, it's a deep loss. But those of us who've gone through and we could look back years from now, I can say it was also an opportunity
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
because
so, because of the experience, yeah, and finding who you are again. And finding a new you and and so is it like finding new interests and skills and talents and places to go to feel fulfilled, maybe taking up a new hobby or a new career or a
yes,
new charity or something that you're passionate about?
I'm
Is that how we see
smiling
it?
because that's the perfect example of the third stage of widowhood, which I talked about the grief first, then there's the growth, and you're doing the financial stuff, the more general, the investments, the insurance,
Yeah.
where you're going to live, kind of things. And some women make it through the first two stages, and that's just fine. It's a good, safe place to be in stage two. But those who go on to stage three, like a whole new life can open up, just like you were talking about, new interests, new friends, new purposes, new connections.
Okay. No, I love that. And I've got this, Kathleen. I've got your 3 stages. I have it on my desk. I keep it here because I want to know when I'm working with my widows, where are you at? I have to know where they're at. I have to say, all right, I know what needs to be done, but I need to see your bandwidth. I need to understand where you're at, because if you're not here to grace and transformation, we're not going to talk a lot about estates yet. But like yesterday, my conversation with one of my widowed clients was like, what are you going to do now? Do you want to build a charity? Do you want to have a family foundation? And her response was, I don't really know yet, which says to me, when you tell me that today, that she's bridging that growth to grace space, but maybe not completely in grace yet.
And that little chart that you had, I would use that with my clients.
And
Not
yes,
initially when they first, because I knew where they're at when they first come to me. But
yeah.
as we're moving along, because people say, well, how long does it take to go from grief to that growth? And it all depends on the widow. It might depend on like the circumstances of death, for example. If it was a sudden death versus someone who was in hospice and was out of hospice and then back in and went through a long period. So it may take them longer. The sudden death may take longer to go from grief to grace, because that widow who knew about it was doing some of her grieving ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, that's good, because one of the other questions I was going to kind of follow up with the confidence and resilience is, do you see anything prior to the death that helps to increase the speed at which they feel confident again and resilient? And so one of those would be circumstantial potentially. Are there
yes,
other things before that
one of the biggest
help that?
one of the reasons that I worked with primarily women who were widows or couples who were looking to that time ahead when one of them would die and there would be just a survivor. This is in the latter part of my 2 decades. And one couple came to me. He was brilliant. He had a PhD in economics, so he understood all this money stuff. But he said, the reason that we're coming here to work with you is because I can't talk to my wife, about money. She says it's boring. She's not interested. She doesn't care about it. And so let's go play with the grandkids. He said, I know. He said, Alzheimer's runs in my family. I have a fear that I'm going to get it and I'll die and she won't have a clue about any of this. So I want us to work together with you. She understands this. He was right on target, because within 2 years, he developed like early signs of dementia and he went into Alzheimer's, and she managed his care. And then he was in a facility. So this continued on. And in the meantime, I'm working with her. All right. He dies. And one of her first phone calls, because it was virtual at that point, they had moved to a different location, virtual. And one of her first phone calls with me, she said, Kathleen, I know I'm going to be okay because I understand this money stuff. So she knew about it. She learned about it ahead of time. So I've written articles about this. One of the pieces that just came out was hoping that you'll die first is not a plan to learn more about you.
Okay.
It was something like that was the title. But it was like understanding this beforehand, finding out what are the pins, what are the passwords ahead of time, making sure that the beneficiaries are all in right order. What is it? What are the wishes, really knowing all that kind of stuff. I saw that the couples that where the woman did not have a clue about this, she stayed stuck in grief longer.
Interesting. I love that you mentioned that, Kathleen. I encourage all of my clients and those who who have a partner still around, learn from others who have not done this. Prepare. No one wants to talk about it, right? But give a gift to your spouse, and that gift will be, help me understand what's going on. I want you to understand it so that then it's easier. Yeah, in my 20 years, I've seen not a lot, but several clients die, and inevitably, the person left is so overwhelmed. Even if we do everything, even if we spend hours and hours and hours, and I've gone to clients' homes and said, give me all your books. Let's go. Let's scan it. Let's look and see, oh, what's this? What's that? I have no idea what this is. Well, let's find it out. Right. And still, then even after the death, there's still things that come at them that they're like, oh, I didn't know that was coming. right? So what a great gift to give of that to help both partners know. And you never know which one's going to go forward first. But man, that's a piece that I love that you mentioned, because I'm passionate about it and to get that word out. All right, legacy planning and purposeful aging. I know, again, Kathleen, you're working now in your life around that, but what role does that play in your work with widows? And why is it important for women navigating life alone for the first time?
Well, you're familiar with the research out there. I think it was the Harvard study is one of the longest running studies that show that what really makes a difference in the longevity and the happiness of folks. And it ties in with relationships, and it also ties in with purpose going forward in life. And I think that in the moving forward part, by having a reason to get up in the morning is what is going to set a widow on her next path, because it's never going to be what it was before. Although you can imagine him coming through the front door, but that's never going to happen again. It never will. And so there needs to be a reason for going forward. And so that's having a purpose.
Finding that purpose, finding what the legacy, what do you want to be known for still in the remaining years of your
And
life?
some of the things, it may be along the same line that they were going with their husband, but for some of my widows, it's like, ooh, I'm going to go this direction now.
Okay. Okay.
Some,
You
some,
see some of them go completely different?
yes,
Some of them are like, oh, cool, this is an opportunity. He held me down for so long. Now I'm ready to go. Do you see that as well?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
That's gotta be hard though, right? Is that hard for women and widows at that point?
No, I'm remembering one dear, and it's strictly confidential. And because it happened so many years ago, no one would even know who I was talking about. But it was a new widow who came to me and she said, yeah, I'm playing the grieving widow, but I'm glad I'm free now.
That is so sad.
And she said she would always put that view forward for the family.
Interesting.
But she would, and by golly, she did. She picked up with her gal pals and she did more traveling. She had wanted to be more philanthropic and sharing some of her wealth, and she moved into that direction too.
Interesting.
That was very, very rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would guess, Kathleen, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I would guess that the majority of the time it's this battle between this was our life together, and here's what I know he and I together thought was important. But you know what? I'm changing direction. I think this is going to be different. And it feels like a little bit of a struggle there to be like, do I do this? Am I dishonoring him? Talk about that for a second, because I see that happen as well.
And with the women that I worked with, that was definitely the smaller amount. And more of them were in the side of actually wanting to honor him. And I've helped several of the
Yeah.
widows to set up memorial funds or named endowment funds with their late husband's name. It was more that way. So on the other side, it was just listening to them, letting them talk about these things that probably unless they were seeing a counselor. And
They're not
many of
talking
my
about.
clients said, "Oh, you're just really a counselor, right? But you're dealing with money, but you're a counselor too."
I know that's
They
one of my
wanted to talk.
clients.
Yeah,
He said,
yeah.
"You're like
It
my
was
therapist." So Kathleen, what advice do you give them if they have this like struggle between, is this dishonoring our agreement, our pact, but they feel strongly about something different? What advice would you give them?
listening to them first of all, and why they wanted to do this, why it was important. By going down this path, what would that change for them? How would it make a difference that would make things better, in their opinion, for them? And never did anything really fast. We'd think about things and what would be the ramification of this. And of course, some of the ramifications are financially. Because if somebody wanted to do this, talked about doing this round the world cruise, what impact was that going to have on their plans for in retirement for doing other things?
Okay. So kind of like
Prior-
realistic.
Are they going to help
What
the grandkids with their college education? Are they going to some of them would talk about getting a second home someplace. Well, then who's going to take care of that? Does that really make sense? Just talking through it, all the possibilities and what the ramifications might be.
Great advice, and helping them get to the end. Like, okay, if this happens, then what? And then help them to get to a decision. I love that. That's really cool. We talked a little about this one already with seeking a therapist, but what other support groups or faith-based communities do you recommend? And you don't have to give me specific names. I don't want you to, single them out, but
There are 2, and I think you mentioned one of your clients had been to Camp Widow, which is part of Soaring Spirits International. They were, to my knowledge, the first group that worked specifically with widows, and I know because they did their first Camp Widow conference. I was a speaker there in 2010. And there's another one that came along, which is Modern Widows Club. And in Modern Widows Club, they also have conferences. Both of these groups have local groups around the country. So one might go and Google, say, Camp Widow near me, and you'll find like they just finished one in Chicago. They're going to be
Chicago.
doing in Washington, D.C. But then they have some state and regional groups too, where folks might get together once a month to share a meal or to do some kind of an activity. I'll think of it in about 5 minutes. That's an almost 79-year-old brain, how it works. I'm trying to get the name, and it can't quite come in, but 5 minutes from now it will.
Hey, you can call me back and we'll record it. We'll put it right onto the podcast. No, they're a great group. Again, I had a client go to the Chicago Soaring
Got it.
Spirits. What is it?
Grief share.
Grief Share. Okay. Is that
That's
the weekly meeting that they have? Or?
That's, I don't know if they're still in effect. When my husband died, I attended. It was a special one time. It was grief around the holidays. These are usually they're groups. They're based out of a church, and there's other ones that are ongoing that met every month or so.
Yes.
But I just went. It was like sharing grief around the holidays.
Yes, yes. No, I went to one locally, one of our local churches, the Calvary Church, happened to have one, and I took one of my widower friends to it. And yeah, there were various topics around, it's all around grief, if I remember right. There really wasn't like a financial slant to it, or it was really about helping them work through the grief. There was 5 or 6 people in the room. And okay, so that's honestly, from what I've seen of that and looked into that, very impressed with the curriculum and the information, and a really good resource.
I
Thank
think
you
it's important that for me, it was that it was facilitated by a leader that had some kind of training. I went to a subsequent, there's an online grouping called Meetup, and they have all kinds of topics. You might meet for a walk, or you might meet to go to a restaurant, or you might meet to find new people in your community.
Yeah.
And I went to one, it was for newly widowed people, but it was just a talk session, and the gal who was running it was running off the edge of a cliff, actually. And I left 2-hour meeting more tired than energized. And I never went back.
So be careful and selective where you go and find the right place. Very cool. I want to ask you about this because I know you're part of what you do so well is to mentor and help other professionals, financial advisors, because that's really your background. So I'm curious, especially with male advisors who are really learning this space and trying to get into it. How can they be, and female advisors as well, be more empathetic and effective serving widows and earning that trust when, especially at the beginning, the grief is just so massive? What do you recommend?
And the word you use, empathetic, is key, and communicate. A widow's not stereotypically looking for has to be somebody who's been through widowhood. No, they want somebody who is caring, who is compassionate, empathetic, who asks questions, who doesn't tell her what to do, but is a thinking partner along with her, like exploring the different options and just holding space. There's going to be times early on in those early meetings with many of my new widows, we didn't touch on financial stuff more than about this much. It was more, tell me about Harry. Unfortunately, I never had a chance to meet Harry, but what's something that you'd like other people to remember about Harry? And let her talk about Harry. How did you and Harry meet? Let her talk. How have these past few days, how are you, rather than saying, how are you doing? How have these past couple of days been for you? Because especially new widows, you're going not only day by day, you're going hour by hour to make it through your survival.
So I take that as don't try to get through your agenda. Listen, let it flow, let them go, especially early on. Great advice. I love that. Yeah, no, I love that advice. That's awesome. Last question. So again, from your book, an excellent resource. So what key mistakes or misconceptions do you see that most often widows handling new financial responsibilities run into? And how does your guidebook help to get them through some of those mistakes that you've seen?
Well, a couple of the big ones is trying to move too fast, thinking they've got to get a lot of stuff done immediately, and they don't. And sometimes that's where some big mistakes can be made because they might think, I need to look at the investment. Or the case of one of the widows who came to me and she had been sold a product she didn't understand. The guy from the insurance company came to deliver the insurance check, and before he had left, he had her endorse that check for the insurance payment back and buying this. It was a type of an annuity, golden presidential something or other.
I was going to say, Kathleen, my guess is that was an annuity that was sold.
Yes, it was an annuity. And when she realized she had bills to pay, there was some repair work that needed to be done in the house. She had some expenses of the funeral. And so she contacted that and asked for her money back. And she passed the free look period. And there was going to be a charge, a back end surrender charge. And she asked, can you help me? All it took was me making a contact and talking about the state insurance regulators. And I certainly didn't hope that I was going to take this situation to them. Well, they backed out of it real fast for this 80-year-old inappropriate investment product sold to her.
Okay.
So it's moving too fast and watching out for those charlatans. And there are some very well-meaning family members who will try and say, you should be doing this, mom, or come in, move with us now that dad's gone. And I used to train my widowed clients to stand in front of a mirror and practice saying, thank you for that suggestion. It's very good, but it's way too early in the process for me to make decisions right now with my financial planner. I'll let him know about this idea and we'll talk about it, but thank you for thinking of me. So blame it on you, Mitch, that you're the reason they can't move in with that son or that daughter or buy this investment or whatever it is.
Love
Those
that.
are moving too fast, and watch out for the charlatans and funny advice that might come even from well-meaning folks.
No, I love that. One thing I've done over my years as an advisor is if I can't really understand it or explain it to a client, I definitely don't want them to be using it. And there's a very complex, no offense to those who sell them because there is a space for them. But when I've been approached in the past by these very complex things and they get done explaining it and I say, I've done this for lots of years and I don't really understand it. And there's no way I'm going to give this to someone who with no experience would ever expect to understand it, whether it's great or not, but so to me, it's simple is better. Like find something simple, find something inexpensive, find something easy to track and to follow and an easy place to be where it's all together in one place. And so you can see it and know what's there, not scattered among multiple custodians and multiple investments and multiple products. Like that just gets really, really weighty.
And you're so right about dropping the jargon because that's just going to leave her in the dust with the jargon. You mentioned the book. The way that I suggest that the book is used, and I'll tell you this idea, and then I'll tell you about something that's going to happen with the book. When I would give her the book, I would say, when the time is right, you may find this book helpful. Start by reading the inspirational quotes and look at the beautiful artwork, and then start working through the pages. And there are several activity pages of things that we can do together to talk about your money situation. That would open the door. But I've been asked by a number of advisors for suggestions on how to use that book. So early 2026 is going to come out a companion to Moving Forward on Your Own for advisors, strictly talking about how they can use the book.
Very cool. Very cool.
And we're doing a refreshed edition of the book in 2020.
That's awesome.
We're putting the 3 stages in. Some of the tools like the now, soon, later, those will come in the book too.
That's awesome. So cool. No, the book is amazing. And the art and the pictures and the story and your heart. I mean, your heart was put into that. And when you read it, you can feel you and you can feel the experience. It's really cool. Certainly something
it's real.
And it is real. I see what you did there. That's really good. And the 3 stages of widowhood, very, very helpful. So, I mean, everything you're doing, Kathleen, is just inspiring. It's fun. I'm learning a lot from you today and from all the work that you're doing in your articles. So thank you for for your time. Anything else we want to add? What did we miss? Anything else that's
I want
like,
to thank you for the work that you're doing with my widowed sisters, because I gave up my registration. I didn't give up my CFP, but my registration. I no longer do individual financial advising.
After 20 years of doing this, it has really become an amazing mission. And you know why I love it so much? Is because those widows are so appreciative when you do it right, and they thank you all the time. And it is better than the pay that comes in. It is just so super fulfilling for me. So I love that space, and it's a sacred space to be in that grieving spot and to be able to help and watch them change. It's just exhilarating. I don't take any credit for it, but it's so amazing to watch it happen over time. So no, thank you, and thank you for your work. I appreciate your time and your help today.
Thank you.